Hey there, everybody. Let's get this show on the road. 7 small business cash flow killers and how to avoid and overcome them. Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. First of all, let's talk about Katie. Super pumped to have you on here, Katie. Thanks so much for joining and helping us out. We'll talk about the Profit First partnership with Thriday shortly, but first of all, Katie's an author. She literally wrote the book Profit First for tradies, which is amazing. Pick it up, read it. For any business owner, really, super helpful. She's also a speaker and a strategist, and you'll find out more about how she can help you and your business potentially later on. I'm Justin Bowman. I am a small business survivor. So I've previously had my own small businesses way back in the day. I'm now head of growth at Thriday, and I'm a customer success advocate. So my whole job here is to help small business owners succeed, especially when it comes to using Thriday. So why do we do what we do? Let's talk about the Profit First partnership to start with. So Profit First is a book written by Mike Malkowitz, and Katie will be able to share more about that than I can, because she's been deep in the weeds with that for many years now. But what that is a process for managing your finances and managing sort of cash flow specifically. And then Profit First Professionals was created in Australia by Laura and Adam, and Katie is a member of Profit First Professionals in Australia. And what that represents is a better method. What it does is Profit First Professionals Australia educate people like Katie on how to then educate their clients on using the Profit First method. And those people, combined with the original process, created sort of a better method. And what we're doing with Thriday is adding the layer of technology. And by adding the layer of that technology, it makes Profit First much easier to sort of use and run, makes compliance sort of better. And the end result of that is sort of optimal business outcomes. And that's how Katie and I got to meet each other. And very excited to present here today how we can help you manage your cash flow. So Katie, tell us a bit about yourself and why it is you do what you do.
Sure. Thank you for having me, everybody. Make sure if you have any questions as well, feel free to use the chat and we'll jump in and answer those as we can as we go along. So I have a bookkeeping business, which I've had for over 11 years. After swearing black and blue, I would never work for myself because my parents had their own business from when I was 8 till 19. Started out a 9-to-5 job for them, ended up 7 days a week, the usual self-employed story. So I, as a child living through that, was never ever going to do that. I then went into financial planning, and I worked with lots of small business owners who were nearing retirement. They'd work their butts off. I'd just seen mum and dad's story repeated. They'd work their butts off, had not much, and they were trying to retire with not much money in the bank. I then had my kids, and then I started my own business, even when I said I would never do it, because I realized that there was a gap between the clients I was seeing when I was a financial planner and the business owner, and nobody was helping them in between. So I decided that the best way I could help them was to set up a bookkeeping business. And my focus in that business is around using tech to make sure that we can make that process as simple and efficient as possible. And I thought I was going to change small business owners' lives forever, and it was going to be amazing. I also promised myself that I would never be in the same situation that I saw my parents and my parents' friends be in, being that struggling with cash flow, working long hours, not charging enough, all of those things. Yet about 2.5 years into my business, there I was. I also knew by that stage I couldn't go back and work for somebody else because I'd already had the freedom and the options that we have as being self-employed people. So then I figured I could either stay where I was and end up worn out and tired and an awful person, or I could look for a solution. And that's exactly what I did. And that's when I come across Profit First. So Mike wrote his book about 9 years ago now, I think. So for those who don't know Mike, Mike is an American entrepreneur who has built and sold a number of multi-million-dollar businesses. The problem was he could make the money, he just didn't have the cash to be able to run, cash flow positive businesses. And that's where the Profit First method come about. I found his book, read it, felt like he was writing it exactly for me, started to implement it in my business, saw it make great changes, and then put it down and stopped doing it, and then fell right back to where I was. I did that, I think, 3 times before I finally stuck to it. And that's when I come across Profit First Professionals Australia and realized I could get certified so I could teach my clients how to implement the system in their business. And that was over 5 years ago now. I joined Profit First Professionals and have been loving teaching clients about Profit First ever since.
Awesome, Katie. Thanks so much. A bit of background on me. So I had a small business back in the day. I was actually in the Army, and I was a parachute rigger, and a parachute rigger in the Army has 0 qualifications to do anything on the outside. As fortune would have it, my wife now, who was my girlfriend at the time, went for a job at eBay, and came home and said, "Oh, we've got to start selling on eBay so I can get my feed back up, and I really want this job." So I started selling, and anyway, replaced my military income selling stuff on eBay. So I created this sort of e-commerce business, built it up. We were generating, over $100,000 a month, and everything was going really well, until I put all of our eggs in one basket with one particular product. And that product was barbecues, and it needed to arrive before summer started, and they needed to be sort of the best version of that barbecue on eBay for the sales to sort of go well. And unfortunately, they didn't arrive in summer. They ended up arriving in winter, and over that time, our cash flow dried up, and I came very close to being bankrupt. Had a new baby at the time, had just bought a house. It was a horrible time and a horrible experience, but kind of led me to where I am today with Thriday. I actually saw Thriday come up as part of a crowdfunding campaign, as a sort of financial management system for small businesses. And it touched a nerve because I'd been there, done that. And I knew that if I had a product like Thriday back at that point in time, things could have been very, very different. I would have made very different decisions. So I invested in Thriday, and then a few days after I'd actually invested in that crowdfunding campaign, the job for head of growth came up, and I applied for it, and here we are. So that's my story and sort of my relationship with small business, and why I'm so passionate about what we're talking about today. Let's jump in. So the 7 cash flow killers. Talk us through it, Katie.
So what we wanted to cover off today was the 7 cash flow killers that I see all the time. Doesn't matter what shape or size your business is. These tend to come up time and time again. The upside is there are solutions for those, so it isn't all just doom and gloom. So the first one is the overlooked obligations. So we all know as business owners that we need to pay, if we've got staff, we need to pay our staff. We would have PAYG, we would have GST, we would have tax, we would have our suppliers. We all know that. We know we have those bills. But as a business owner, what happens so often is that we get caught up in the day-to-day of everything, and things get missed. And that can absolutely kill the business. It can kill your relationships with your suppliers, with your staff, with your clients, and can absolutely make things very, very hard for you there. The other one is the percentages are off. So for those who have read Profit First or Profit First for Tradies, you'll know that we talk about percentages. So one of the things there is that your percentages just aren't quite right. And we're going to talk more about what we can do with those. The third one is that often it's not them, it's often us. And I put myself in this same boat because I have two businesses. I still have my bookkeeping business and I have my coaching business. And whilst I do this stuff all day, every day, I still fall into some of these traps sometimes. So it's about being aware of them so that then we can fix them. And another thing I see often, like Justin mentioned, putting all your eggs in one basket, just like he did with the barbecues. Fortunately, he was able to get, manage his way out of that. But I see so many clients not able to do that, or not able to do it, and cause them huge amounts of stress as well. You win some, you lose some. The old, it's all going well until it's not, and then it'll pick up and then it doesn't. So we're going to talk more about that as well. And you're too nice. And we all fall in this trap as well. Again, and it's something that just time and time again, clients come to me in a mess and they can't understand why, because they've been so nice to the client, to the supplier, to the whoever. And doesn't mean that we need to be horrible, but let's not be too nice about these things. And the final one is that you're worth more than what you think. Another thing I see just come up all the time is that we undervalue our services, our products, and we undervalue the work that we do within our own businesses and within our own industries as well. So we're going to dive into these. Just wait for my screen to catch up. There we go. So as I mentioned, the overlooked obligations, we all know that we have all of these things, but the amount of times that I hear or speak to clients who didn't realize that the BAS bill was 20,000 rather than 10,000, or that they'd forgotten to pay last quarter's BAS when they thought they had it, somehow had slipped through the cracks. It happens time and time again, and we want to make sure that you have a system set up that nothing gets overlooked and you don't get that surprise bill, that shock, that reminder that is never a small amount of money. We want to make sure, as we said here, all your obligations are front of mind. So at the moment, all of my clients use Xero at the moment, because at the time that was the best bookkeeping and accounting system for my clients. With the partnership that Profit First now has with Thriday, we are definitely looking at Thriday as a solution there as well. And it does some amazing things and allows you to see your business much easier than what you have been able to in the past. So one of the things here, like with the obligations, you can clearly see what the income is, what the expenses are, what the deductions are, what your potential profit is. Now, again, like any tool, it is amazing, but we need to make sure that it's used properly. And that's where working with somebody like myself, or with, doing the training and so on Thriday to make sure that everything's set up correctly, is going to keep all those obligations front of mind for you. You shouldn't have to go fishing around trying to figure out how much you owe, your suppliers and GST and all of those things.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of the research that we did before we started building Thriday indicated that cash flow, of course, was a challenge for a lot of people. And it's what we tried to do within Thriday was keep that front of mind. Every time you log into Thriday, you can see a cash flow chart. You can see what your income and expenses were as of today. You can look at last month and compare this month to last month. As you can see here, that tax estimate, we automatically calculate your tax as your income comes in, as your expenses go out. So what you can simply do is have a separate bank account for tax and make sure that that amount of tax is in that bank account at any given time, so you don't run into this problem of bill shock, and you know exactly how your business is performing at a glance.
And that is one of the misconceptions, I think, that it's good to highlight, that this part of the process, looking at your financials and knowing where you are, is difficult. It has been difficult in the past. It doesn't have to be difficult. You just have to have the right systems and processes set up and when you do have it set up properly, 10 minutes a week, if everything's set up right, is enough time for you to go in, double check everything, know where you're at, pay bills. And, you know, if you're running Profit First, do all of that. It doesn't have to be an overly time consuming process when you're using the right tools and the right processes.
100%. And some other part of our research indicated that on average, small business owners spend 6 hours a week managing their financial admin, which is crazy, right? And you know, our goal at Thriday is to literally bring that down to no more than 30 minutes for every business owner that uses Thriday. Because
I was just going to say that's about 5.5 hours too long.
It doesn't have to be that difficult.
Yeah, it doesn't. It truly doesn't. So when we're talking about Profit First, for those who have read or listened to the book, know that we're always talking around percentages. So what are the allocation percentages that you put in for the various factors? So things like your profit, your owner's pay, your tax, your operating expenses. Now, your operating expenses is a big one, and that's where part of that bill shock also comes into play, is that your percentages are off. You actually don't know what percentage your expenses are of your revenue, and are they too high? Are they not enough? Is there enough money there? And that confusion then causes most business owners to just stick their head in the sand. Now, I talk to hundreds of business owners every year, and so many people do this, and it's just because we don't have the information at our fingertips to be able to make better decisions. So if that has been you in the past, please don't beat yourself up about that. Please know that with the right tools, you can turn that around. It is not too late, but we just have to be willing and open to having a look at other solutions. If it's not working now, let's improve that and make some changes. So we always want to review, correct, and then distribute. So again, Thriday is going to have some really simple graphs that is going to be able to show you exactly what's going on. Your chart of accounts, super simple. And as I said, I've used Xero for over 11 years now, and I think it has been the best bookkeeping accounting system on the market. It doesn't have a number of the functions that Thriday does, which is why I'm super excited with this partnership, because I know that those clients of mine who are going to be able to work with Thriday are going to get an even simpler, easier tool, and they're going to have that data there in front of them at their fingertips. It's going to make things a lot easier.
Yeah, so the way we do this at Thriday is as long as all of your income is coming into Thriday and your expenses are going out of Thriday, and you're scanning and saving your receipts into Thriday, we automatically reconcile those receipts and expenses. We automatically assign a chart of accounts and a category to those expenses. And then we automatically calculate all of your tax and your GST, etc., off the back of that data. You no longer have to sort of sit down on a Sunday night and go through all of your receipts in a shoebox sort of one by one. If you just take a photo using the app as you purchase something, and then if that expense exists within Thriday, it's automatically reconciled, and then all of these chart of accounts and reports and everything are up to date and in real time. So if you were to then go to a Profit First professional, they could sit down next to you and go through your chart of accounts and say, oh, look, it looks like you're spending a little bit too much here, or it looks like your income for this particular category might be a little bit lower than it could be, and you can work on things from there.
And just on that, if you don't have all of your income and expenses coming into, like all of your income coming into one business account and all of your expenses coming out of one business, like operating expenses account, if you've got some in personal or some off credit cards or here, there and everywhere, it's really time to get that streamlined and all in one place, because it makes your life so much easier, and then it's going to give you a much better view of where the business is.
Yeah, and again, with Thriday, you can set up multiple bank accounts. You can have up to 9 bank accounts, and it literally takes a couple of clicks to set them up, which is pretty much the Profit First method ideology right there.
And I tested it out because I wasn't sure that within a few minutes was correct. And it literally is. It was super quick. So I'm super excited, because opening bank accounts can be a real pain. The banks can tend to not be super efficient in that department. So again, this is another headache that I hear from clients all the time that is going to be fixed with Thriday. So it's not them, it's you. Again, I put myself in this situation with my business. There's a number of things that we don't do that then has that knock-on effect throughout the business. So if we don't have any work at the moment, we then have to go, are we doing any quotes? If we're not doing any quotes, okay, why aren't we doing any quotes? If we don't have any cash in the bank, the amount of clients that come to me and say, oh, I've got a cash flow problem, like I've got no money in the bank. And then we go through and there is sometimes tens of thousands of dollars that haven't even been invoiced out to the clients. So I know this sounds super obvious, but if you don't invoice your client, they can't pay you. So when I then talk to clients about that, usually they're not invoicing because they're inundated with doing other paperwork and, working at 8 o'clock at night in the office after they've just done a full day out in the field. Again, making it streamlined so that the paperwork is less, so that you can send your invoices. If you're if you have a lawn mowing business, for example, and you've gone to Mrs. Brown's house and you've done that mowing service for the week, there's no reason why you can't invoice straight away if you haven't already got a payment set up for that. But just making it really simple and really easy to be able to invoice, that means clients are going to be able to pay you much, much quicker. And reminders. This is such an underutilized function that Thriday makes really, really simple. So as long as you invoice out the client, then you can customize your reminders to remind the client at a particular time, so that you don't then have to wait until you get a minute to follow up clients. You can automate part of that process as well. And what I find talking to my clients is that so often there's a small portion of people who try to avoid paying you. That's just part of life. There's a large majority of those people, though, who just forget, who are busy, who the first invoice just got lost in their email, or they opened it when they had, a kid having a tantrum or whatever else. So setting up reminders is going to be a huge benefit to the client as well, and then also takes that off your to-do list as well.
Yeah, something else we see is sending invoices via SMS can have a big impact on payment times as well, because we know 99% of SMSs get opened, but it's only a fraction of that where emails are definitely opened, which is interesting.
It is. And again, just setting up with your client and letting them know, hey, I'm going to send you a text when I'm done here this afternoon. It's going to have the link to your invoice in there. So when they get it, they're not surprised, and they're not then thinking, oh, is this a dodgy email, a dodgy text? You've already prepared them for what's coming, and then they're more likely to pay that on time for you.
Yeah, and you should be able to send invoices from your phone as well. And something else you can do is create invoices in preparation for the job ending. The invoice doesn't necessarily have to be created at the time that the job ends. You could create the invoice a week or two even before the job ends, quickly edit it, update whatever the final amount is, and send it immediately when the job's finished. You can be proactive.
And being proactive is key. And so many clients that I work with have all their eggs in one basket. So they're relying either on like one revenue stream from maybe one big client, or they're selling one type of product. And whilst that works for some businesses for a period of time, it works until it doesn't, and then it can become really problematic. Just like Justin mentioned with his barbecues, he was all in on the barbecues, shipment didn't arrive, and then he had nothing else to fall back on. So that's just something to always keep an eye on. And what I find is I always ask my clients the question, what is the most profitable service or product that you provide? And they always say, usually quite quickly, they'll come back with a response, when we go through the data, we go through the numbers, it is very, very rarely, the numbers very rarely back up what they thought it was. So being able to have access to the information that can confirm or deny what is actually going to be the most profitable for you is certainly going to help you reduce your risk and make smarter business decisions.
Yeah, 100%. I learned that one the hard way, very much so.
And again, all these things that we talk about, they're super common. And often it's just because we didn't know that there was a solution, and that's what we want to hope to give you some options and solutions for you today.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, as a small business owner, like, you know, as soon as you start that business, you're expected to be the expert in the service or the product that you deliver. You know, the expert in the customer service. You're the expert in doing the books, the accounting, the bookkeeping, etc. There's just so many hats to wear, and that's what we're trying to do. Just you know, help you take off one or two of those hats and make life a little bit easier.
And I always say you don't have to be the specialist in all of those areas. You absolutely do need to be across the board of your numbers, but you don't need to be spending 6 hours a week under a fog of financial information that 95% of it is useless to you because it's not in the correct format or it's not in the correct spot and so on. And making sure that you have it set up correctly saves all that time and gives you that control back again. So you win some, you lose some. Again, there are some jobs where we make a lot of money on, and then there's some jobs where we don't make very much money on, and some jobs that we even lose a lot of money on. The problem I see is that so many people don't know if they're making money or not, or if they're losing money or not. So like the example of when I ask my clients what they're making the most money on, often that's what they're making the least amount of money on. And sometimes it's at a loss, yet that's the work that they're targeting to get more of because they feel like that is the most profitable one. They're just going on their gut. Now, as business owners, we have a pretty good gut feel for things. I like to balance my gut feel with data and then make a decision, and it proves to be much more efficient and much more beneficial for us all. And what you can do to help you do that is to tag the transactions so you can actually see. So for example, if we have a service that has 3 parts to it, as though the costs come in for those parts, we can tag those in Thriday so that you can see exactly what it costs you. You can tag your invoice and you'll be able to see exactly, this is what I'm getting for it and this is what it's costing me. So at a quick glance again, you'll be able to see exactly where you're at.
Yeah.
And that's something that people don't do because it's too complicated.
Yeah, that's right. Like, revenue doesn't equal profit.
No. And I get very nervous when people talk to me and they lead with, I turn over this amount of money. 99.9% of the time, I know they are running a very unprofitable business because turnover doesn't mean anything. We need to think about what we get to keep, not what we're turning over, because they're two very, very different figures. So you're too nice. We all as business owners can be too nice at times. And again, not that we should be not nice, but things like payment terms and having longer payment terms for client, or you've got a 14-day payment term, for example, but then you're not following it up when it's due. So essentially the client is paying when they feel like in another 14, 30, however many days down the track. And that's causing your business to have cash flow issues. I hear it all the time. Oh, I don't want to rock the boat with that client because otherwise they won't give me any more work. Or, I can't lose that contract. I can't chase up that invoice because if I do, they'll get annoyed with me and I won't get fed any more work from them. Please know that you're the one that's being the bank for them, and it's not healthy for you to do that. It's certainly not healthy for your business to do that. And again, having a clear idea of when things are due, when they should be paid, and having those follow-ups is going to help you with that. The one tip I actually give to clients is if you are the person who's doing the follow-up, create like Mel from accounts or whoever it may be, and use that as the person who follows up, so you can still keep that relationship with the client, because that's what so many people tell me that they're afraid is going to have an issue caused with it, and have it come from the accounts person. That's what the accounts person is there for. So when your client gets the email for the follow-up from Mel from accounts, they expect that, because that's that person's job. But if there's just you in your business, there's no reason why you can't have a Mel from accounts or whoever. I always say to my bookkeeping clients, say the email comes from me, from Katie the bookkeeper. That's fine, that's my role. But let's stop being too nice and stop letting our clients walk all over us, because that doesn't help.
Yeah, exactly. It's as simple as changing the from email address in Thriday to Katie instead of yourself.
Yeah, and it just makes such a difference. So we need to, as I said, take a stand, negotiate. Don't be afraid to negotiate the payment terms. So if you're working with a client, and particularly bigger clients will often dictate the terms, particularly if you're in the building industry. Don't be afraid to negotiate those terms. Don't be afraid to follow up. If you've negotiated 30 days from date of invoice and they're not sticking to that, don't be afraid to follow it up. Squeaky wheel gets the oil in this situation. Be nice, be polite, and be persistent. And for the most part, you won't have any troubles with that. Make sure
remember,
you send your
they're doing the
invoices
same
on
thing
time.
as what you're doing.
Exactly.
For their clients. They're chasing their clients.
And often what I see is often it's because businesses are disorganized because they don't have the systems in place. That's why you're not getting paid. That's not your problem. If they aren't focusing and spending time and energy on having good systems in place, why should you be the one who suffers because of that? So how about we be the leader, and we show them how we run small businesses, and we show them, hey, I'm using this new program and this is allowing me to do these things, or, this is the process we've got in place. Don't be afraid to stand your ground. Automate things. As I said, sign up as your bookkeeper or the staff member, but just set the ground rules and stick to the ground rules. And you are worth more than you think. So this book, Someone Has to Be the Most Expensive, Why Not Make It You, by Andrew Griffiths. Andrew happens to be my book writing coach, and he is also my speaker coach. He is one of the nicest people that you will ever meet. And if you didn't know him and read the title of the book, you could think, like that's a bit full of yourself type of thing. And it's the exact opposite. This is the book I recommend everybody read, because it then helps you do all of those things that we've been talking about. Knowing that you have the systems and processes in place, knowing that you are providing a valuable service or product to your clients, and then knowing what you need to charge to be able to make money in your business, then allows you to do all of those things so much easier. And yeah, again, making sure the pricing is fair, because I hear that all the time is, I'm charging $100, but I'm going to discount it down to $80 for this client, without taking into consideration what it's costing you to do that job or do that product. And again, coming back to the tagging, that's going to help you in Thriday be able to make that decision, so you're not going backwards. So you can say to the client, okay, actually I can drop it down $5, but that's all I can do. And you know that you're still going to get what you need. The client's still getting the amazing product or service that you're offering, but you're not going to go backwards because you're being nice to the client.
Yeah, a little anecdote about that that Andrew Griffiths book. I had no idea he was Katie's writing coach for writing her book. When I put this slide together, it was just a coincidence.
Yes.
Super cool. Okay, to wrap it up.
Yeah, so what I wanted to do, as I said, is the 7 cash flow killers I see all the time. Overlooked obligations. The upside is we could have overlooked obligations in the past, But now we can look at it as we've got unrealized possibilities. We have, our percentages might have been off, but now we have the opportunity to improve them and make them right going forward. So we can review and we can reset. It's not them, it's us. The opportunity there for us is that we can take back control. Remember, we should be running our businesses, not letting our businesses or our customers run us. We don't want to put all the eggs in one basket. That means that we have the opportunity, we can explore other opportunities and see what's going to be a good fit for us. You win some, you lose some. The upside is of that, we can gain clarity to try and win more. We don't have to keep losing and all the time. We're too nice. We don't have to be, but we always, as I said, always be nice and be profitable. So whatever that looks like, persistent and polite is my 2 words that I use all the time. And you're worth more than you think. You have a good product, you have a good service. Recognize your value and don't be afraid to stand your ground when it comes to your pricing on that.
Yeah, I'll just check if we've got any questions here. We've got a question from Darren. Hey, we'll be able to get a recording of the webinar as I'll need to leave soon. Sure, Darren, we'll send you that through. And does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, throw them in the chat because we can open it up for questions as well. Because I will have a question for you all at the end as well. So you may as well make the most of it and ask us some questions if you have any.
Yep, someone else asking for the recording. If you're already stuck, how do you fix it? Good question.
The first step is to realize that you're stuck, which you've done. So pat yourself on the back for that, because so many people keep putting their head in the sand and thinking it's going to get better, and it doesn't. The next step I always say is reach out to somebody. So, perfect example here, you've decided that you're going to come onto this and find out some more information and start figuring some things out for yourself. Some people can figure it out for themselves, great. Other people need to reach out to people to get them to help. So for example, in my businesses, I have a business coach, I have a mentor, I have all of those things, and as well around my finances, even though I do that all day, every day. My one rule when I work with clients is you must ask questions. And that's something that I think as business owners, we're afraid to ask questions, or we ask one and it doesn't really answer our question, but then we get too afraid to ask the next one. Make asking questions like the primary thing that you do until you get unstuck, until you can find the solution that is for you. I would say, Laura, do you know where you're stuck? Have a think about that. Have a think about where you're stuck, and then potentially what's making you stuck, and then that'll help you decide who you then need to ask the question from. Like if it's a tax issue, do you need to go to your tax accountant? Or if it's a bookkeeping problem, do you need to go to your bookkeeper? If you don't have a bookkeeper, reach out to me, happy to have a chat. Have a think about those things, and then you'll be able to help you decide where to go next. But keep asking questions.
Yeah, what steps do you normally go through, Katie, when someone sort of does work with you from a profit first perspective?
So as I said, I've got my 2 businesses. So clients can work with us just from a bookkeeping perspective, or just a profit first perspective, or both. It's not a requirement to work with me for everything. So from a profit first point of view, when clients come on board, what we do is we first set them up with profit first in their business. Now, many clients are already doing profit first to some degree in their business. So we do a full review of what they're doing at the moment, and then we go through and make it we update everything that they need to make it really streamlined and efficient for them. From that, we also then, because we're looking at the numbers, we also then often identify that there's problems with their bookkeeping, and then we highlight to them. We do what we call, so our clients work with Xero, so we'll do a review of Xero, and then we'll give them a report that's color coded. So green is good, yellow needs some work but not urgent, red is this really needs to be looked at straight away. And then we work on that with them to get that fixed up. Sometimes we give them training so they can continue to do their bookkeeping themselves if that's what they choose to do. Sometimes they come on board for us to do their bookkeeping. It really depends on the client, but the first point of call is a chat with me, and that's when I ask 101 questions to help you figure out what you need, because often what we think we need is not actually what's causing the problem. Like I mentioned before, clients will come to me and say, oh, I've got a cash flow problem. It's because, clients aren't paying me. I'm like, that's great, but you haven't invoiced them. So of course they can't pay you. So then we go, why aren't you invoicing? Oh, because the information isn't getting, and there's, we just keep going back and back and back till we find the source of the problem.
Cool. And Laura asks, if financially you can't afford the extra people like a business coach, what do you do then? Probably start where you started with the books.
Yeah, commit to learning yourself. You are not going. So, for example, for me to be a certified Profit First professional, we have extensive training that we have to go through to become certified, and then we have continuous ongoing training to be recertified every year. Now, you're not going to get to that length, and that's fine. Read my book. If you're not in the trade space, take out the word tradie and put your industry in there. It will work the same for you. Come on webinars like this, get on mailing lists of people that are going to have information that you need to know about. Listen to podcasts. There is so much information out there. It's just a matter of figuring out what area you need the help in. And again, at the start, that could be a bit grey. You may not be certain, but just increasing your own education around it.
Yeah, cool. Quick question from Caroline. I'm not sure I understand. Is Thriday a standalone system or an add-on for Xero? Thriday is a standalone system. So we built Thriday. It's got banking, it's got bookkeeping, accounting, and tax all built in. So as long as all of your income is coming into your Thriday bank accounts, of which you can have 9 of, and your expenses are going out of your Thriday bank accounts with the Visa debit card attached to it, all of the expenses are categorized automatically and the income is categorized automatically. You can invoice from Thriday, you can quote from Thriday, and soon we'll have payroll as well. It's actually only open or available for sole traders right now, but it will be available for companies within the next few months. So Thriday is certainly a standalone system to organize all of this stuff in one place.
And that's the key, in one place. As I said, I've used Xero forever and a day and it is amazing, but there are other parts and other systems and apps and so on I need to use for my clients to be able to get that complete solution, whereas Thriday is building that, it has built and building that complete solution for clients.
That's right. Yeah, Carolyn, you would still need another system for payroll, but you could simply use something like KeyPay and then pay that payroll from your Thriday account. So, even though Thriday is sort of amazing already, especially for sole traders, we're only about 1% of where we want to be. So we know that, things like payroll need to be added to the product, but it's still, even just from a banking perspective, as Katie alluded to earlier, just being able to have create your first bank account online in about 3 minutes, right? And be verified and ready to go, and then spin up 8 other bank accounts right there and then for no monthly cost. You can use the bank accounts for no monthly cost with Thriday. Just to have that and then set up your Profit First accounts is valuable in and of itself. So hopefully that answers that question, Carolyn. And I've got another one from Jake. Do you think scaling up often increases cash flow
for sole traders?
Yeah, that is outsourcing projects, bringing in mentors or coaches, etc. So does scaling up often increase cash flow for sole traders?
So Jake, do you mean in that increasing your expenses to increase your cash flow, or do you mean Because what I see is a lot of clients come to me and they're like, oh, I want to grow, or I've tried to grow and I've gotten myself into a bigger mess than I was before. So when we talk about growth, increasing your income doesn't translate to more money in the bank, and often it translates to less money in the bank. From a should I invest in specialist point of view, then if you invest in the right specialists, they are absolutely going to have a huge return on investment, and it is well worth it. Again, coming back to knowing your numbers and knowing what you can afford is then going to make it much easier for you. So for example, if someone's to work with me, there would be obviously a fee for them to invest to work with me, and they wouldn't see that return immediately, but we will see that quite quickly. But we know exactly what the investment is, we then know exactly where they are, and we know exactly what steps we need to take for them to be able to increase their income to be able to well and truly cover what that investment is. But I see people so often grow when they haven't nailed this foundational part of their business, and it just amplifies the problems that they already have. So growth isn't always the best solution to start with.
And even the way you work, Katie, you described to be one of your main goals within the first couple of weeks of working with anyone is to sort of get them that return on investment somewhere, either in, saved expenses, increasing price, whatever it might be.
Yes, I have two goals when I work with clients. The first one is to educate them so that they can understand exactly what they need to know to efficiently run their business from a financial perspective. The second one is to get them their investment in me back to them as soon as possible. For most clients, that's usually as soon as they do the first part of my program. I had a new client yesterday who the email was, I can't believe I waited so long. And then when I read the email, it was, I've returned your investment 10 times over already. And the reason why I do that first is firstly because we want to make sure that you're going to get the investment, but also so then you don't have to think about it anymore when you're learning the rest of Profit First, particularly because it's a different system that you may not have had any real understanding of before. So to take that pressure away that you've invested a certain amount of money, now we've got that return back for you. Now you can free up your mind just to focus on learning the rest of the system, which makes it much, much easier.
Super cool. So we're over time. We're going to wrap it up, but this is where you
can I just quickly answer Leah's question?
Of course.
Sole trader using QuickBooks. The thought of switching to Thriday or any other program makes me sick. Yes, I hear that all the time. So my suggestion would be have a chat to somebody. Have a chat to somebody to help you do that. It actually won't be as bad as you think, and the benefits will far outweigh that period of time.
Yeah, it's actually pretty simple. You jump into, like, if you were switching over to Thriday, you could create a manual balance for all of your income to date this financial year, and then a manual balance for all of your expenses. Keep the data that you have from QuickBooks for this financial year, but put those balances into Thriday just so it's up to date and the tax calculations are there. And then very simply start running all of your income through Thriday, start spending all of your money on your business expenses using that Thriday Visa debit card and saving those receipts to Thriday. And then come the next financial year, you're going to be ready to rock and roll, and it's going to be super, super simple to move across.
And if that all sounds too hard as well, Leah, because I know that could still sound like a lot of work, again, reach out to somebody, get help doing that part of the process, and it will be far more beneficial for you in the long run to do it. Just
nice one.
Change it a bit is not super fun sometimes.
Let's do one more from Melissa. Staff shortage, financial stress, not having enough staff to complete jobs.
Yeah, so all super common, which isn't helpful, but everybody, doesn't matter what industry, is going through this. And this is why it is even more important to have your numbers nailed and know where you're sitting, because then you can make better financial decisions. So if you, I just got off a call before this one with a client who has won a whole bunch of new work, but doesn't have the staff to do it. And so because he knows his numbers, he can really easily see how much he can afford to pay in overtime, for example, in his situation, to be able to get that work done and still be profitable. I've got other clients who know that they can take on, a part-timer if they can't get a full-timer, or they're able to pay a higher hourly rate because they know their numbers, so they can fit all that in and go, okay, instead of paying like 30 an hour, I can pay 35. But they don't just pick a number out of the air to get a staff member to do the job and then go backwards. They can be much more strategic about it.
Yeah. Cool. You can find Katie at profitfirstfortradies.com.au and reach out to her from there. Buy the book. It's awesome. You've got a podcast up and running now as well, Katie. So so much information.
Yeah.
And really valuable stuff.
Yeah, plenty of places where you can get lots of info for free first.
Yeah. And Thriday, you can visit us or email me directly if you want a demo of the product. Visit thriday.day/cashflow. And I'll send out an email with a recording of this webinar, and we'll probably turn this into a big resource as well, where you can go and read through and implement some of the action points. And that's it. Thanks so much for joining. Really appreciate it. Great to have you.
One question.
Oh, your one question, Katie. Sorry.
My one question for everybody else is, what action are you going to take today from this? It's great to come on these things and listen and learn, but what I really want to encourage you to do is just take one little thing. It doesn't have to be, sit down for an hour and do anything. It could be a 5-minute task, but just have a think about what's the one thing that you can take away from what you've learned from Justin and I today to make a difference in your business.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome work.
Thanks, guys. Everyone.